I'm going to now assemble the gearbox. Now we'll start with gearbox plate A. It's the one with the 3 large holes. You've got part number J2. It's a small bearing carrier basically. There's 2 pockets in there for 2mm nuts. That goes right there in the middle hole on the gearbox, and 2 2x6mm screws to hold it together. Use a little small amount of thread lock on those. Okay, next you're going to use 3 of the gearbox stays, these standoffs here, and 3 3x6mm screws. You're going to use this bottom corner here, this hole right up above it, and of these 2 here, you're using the lower one on the top left. Tighten those up really well. Gear shaft A right now. Make sure you hold it where you've got the longer section between the splines on this end, and you're going to look for MD18, which is going to be a 13 tooth metal gear. That's going to go over like this. You need to find your 36 tooth gear, your white plastic one. These white plastic gears aren't labeled, so you're going to have to pay attention to the hubs. This one's a splined hub, and or count the teeth. Make sure you've got the right ones. This goes right over this other gear, locks in place there on that spline. You're going to go ahead and put an E-clip in right here in that groove. Next, onto the next spline here, you're going to use your MD17, which is a 20 tooth metal gear. You bring that right over. You'll put another E-clip in this groove here. Now flip the gear shaft around to the other end. You're going to use your 27 tooth gear. It's going to have a hex hub in the center. And then you're going to take your short gear hub. It's going to be the brass one. That's going to go right into the center, into that gear, over the end there on that spline. And then you're going to put an E-clip on the rest of the grooves. You're going to use a total of 6 E-clips on this shaft so far. Alright, now gear shaft A is completely assembled, and we're going to move on to gear shaft B. Alright, now in the center here, between these 2 spots, you're going to put 1 E-clip in the center, orient it so that you've got the flat spot on the end, on this end over here. You're going to grab your 37 tooth gear, and you're going to insert 2 11x6 bearings or bushings. I'm going to go ahead and use the supplied bushings inside the transmission. Right on over to that E-clip. Next, you're going to take part J7, 2 more of the 11x6 bearings. It's going to go on just like this, right in there, and then 1 more E-clip right here between that flat spot and the spline. Alright, now flip it over around to the other end. Put 1 more of the E-clips right here next to the gear here. Next, washer right over the end. Then you've got one of the longer gear hubs this way with the little lip sticking out right over those splines there. You're going to want to go ahead and grease the outer edges of the hub a little bit. Grease the shaft a little bit here also. You're going to take J8, It's going to go over the hub like this. You're going to take your 44 tooth gear and use 2 of the 11 by 5 bushings or bearings. It's going to go over the shaft, and make sure you've got those 3 slots. Those 3 slots go towards this piece right here. That's what's going to engage that gear. J5, a small plastic bushing. It's going to go over the end, and 1 more E-clip on the end here. And go back to this end here, next to this gear, and you're going to put 1 more of the gear hubs, like right over and onto the splines like so, and then 1 more E-clip right there. Alright, now flip it around to this side here. You're going to find J6, another one of these plastic shift pieces. Go ahead and grease the shaft right here. Put this piece over your gear hub here. Want these facing outward. Next, you're going to take your 30 tooth gear, 2 of the 5 by 11 bearings or bushings, and you're going to put it on, oriented this way. Okay, and then you're going to put your last E-clip right on the end here. Now assemble the shift rod. In the center of the rod, you're going to put the 2 small E-clips in the grooves, and now you've got a real short end here between this last groove and the end, and a longer end. We're going to start at the short end. Grease the shaft a little bit. 1 shift fork goes on, oriented this way with the bushing facing out. Number J1 is a small white bushing that goes over the shaft. Next shift fork faces the other way. The bushing end faces towards that spacer. 1 spring over the end. On the other end, the last of the 3 shift forks goes over the end, bushing facing outward, and then a spring over the end. Now to actually start assembling the gearbox, you take part J3. You're going to use 3 of them. You put 1 right here on this gearbox half, so basically a bearing carrier, and then you take the other gearbox half and you press those in there, like such. 5 by 11 bearings. Go ahead and put those into this gearbox half here. Okay, you're going to want to kind of a little bit of grease on the face of those bearings. Gear shaft A goes into the top bearing there. Gear shaft B goes into the bottom one. That end with that plastic bushing is one that goes in there, like so. Okay. Take your shift rod. Okay, the longer end goes through this bushing here. Okay, with the shaft in there, and making sure that the shift forks are in those grooves. Okay. Put the bearings into the other half of the gearbox. 11 by 5 bearings. Put the shift rod and the gear shafts through. Then you're going to go ahead and use your 3 by 6 screws and assemble that. 4th standoff. Now that you pretty much assembled here. We're going to go ahead and put your small E-clip on the end of your shift rod, both ends. Okay, on the end, on the output shaft here of the transmission, you're going to go ahead and put part number J4, small plastic bushing, and then your drive cup. Make sure you line the set screw hole up on the drive cup with the flat spot on the shaft. Use some Loctite or thread lock on the set screw and tighten that down real good. And to move around to the back, you're going to take your motor, the cardboard motor plate. I'm going to line that up with your mounting holes on the motor. Take your pinion. You're going to line the grub screw hole with the flat spot on the shaft. Use some thread lock on that grub screw, on that set screw. And get that started. Okay, just kind of gently tighten that in there. Don't tighten it all the way down until we get that in there and make sure everything's aligned properly. There, into the gearbox. And you're going to use your 3x6 screws. Go ahead and attach the motor. One in the hole and another one at the slot here. Okay, and with the motor loosely attached here. Now the side that's got the slot, make sure you've got a washer on that screw there. Make sure you've got full contact between your pinion and this spur gear here. You can adjust the pinion, in and out as necessary, and then go ahead and tighten that screw down real well. Okay, and then once you get your gear mesh set, then you can go ahead and tighten both of those screws. Okay, your shift ball stay and the ball stud for the shifter goes right on the end of the shift rod here. You can tighten down that ball stud to lock that in place. Now to assemble the gearbox halves, you take this half here. Now you put the 3mm nuts in the little pockets right there, there, all 5 of those. Gearbox half, another gearbox half, and assemble that with your 3x8 screws. Okay, now we got this. We've got your gearbox and motor all fully assembled. Gonna go ahead and grab the drive shaft. Make sure you grease the dog bones a little bit. They're going to go into the drive cups. Grab your assembled frame, and you go ahead and take that dog bone and go ahead and put it into the drive cup on the rear axle. Get the gearbox down into the frame. The gearbox is wider than the frame rail, so you're going to have to rock it a bit and kind of work it down until these mounting tabs rest on the frame. To go ahead and maneuver that dog bone in place at the same time into the output drive cup. You've got your 4 mounting tabs on the gearbox. Go ahead and move that around to line up with the mounting holes in the frame. Tighten that down with 4 of your 3x6 screws. Flip it over. And connect the shift linkage to that shift rod. Gearbox and motor They're fully complete and installed.